But my name is Travis, and I'm a future diplomat, just like many of the people that I'm studying with. I do not work for the Department of State. This is a training, this is a studying group, and we all study together. We're all learning together, and I'm grateful that I get the opportunity to share things that I've learned and also learn from these other future diplomats as well. Today, we're going to be learning about crafting effective personal narratives, essentially crafting compelling narratives, and best practices for storytelling and concise writing. The point of this is to write your FSOT essay, but also be able to write your personal narratives in a way where you're not too hung up on ChatGPT and Copilot and Gemini and others. So you get an opportunity to express yourself, because you're not going to have it when you actually take the FSOT. So if anything, we can get a little bit more confident about how we write. I will admit, from my own personal experiences, I've used ChatGPT so much, especially when it first came out, and even in the last last year, I said last quarter, and it's improved so much. I asked ChatGPT to help me understand. There's a book that I recently read called "What Would the Rockefellers Do?" And I said recently, but in the last 4 years. And it's essentially, about how the Rockefellers and the Carnegies and Vanderbilts and all these other families that are extremely wealthy, how do they set up their finances so every single person who's born essentially gets paid through the family trust and their family bank. I was like, how can I make this at my level? And I fed it some information. It asked me some questions like it was a person on the other side of the phone. And we went back and forth. We, as in ChatGPT and myself, or I should say it, went back and forth with me. And I got some really, really good results. So I do understand, why it is very enticing. Instead of me going to go get a degree on how to learn how to do that in the finance world, it was just really nice to have that quick insight to make it personal. Obviously, ChatGPT and anything else can be a little off, and it will tell you that some things may be wrong. So it's always good to check behind it. But our goal is to learn about storytelling today, so you can show up effectively in the way you write for your personal narratives and for your essay. I want to share my screen before we get started, because I want to address something, and this is part of the conversation that we were having before I started recording. But something is obviously happening in the news, and this is from Reuters. So this is a press. Well, this is not a press release. I thought it was a press release. But either way, it's still the same conversation. And essentially, with the Department of State, we are talking about what it will look like right now with consulates closing, and even with the applications for the Foreign Service being closed right now or postponed with no sight of return close. But we're still preparing as if that is still going to happen. A lot of people are feeling the pressure of, what am I going to do now? I know, speaking from my own personal experiences, I wanted to be a U.S. diplomat for about a decade of my life, but I thought I would never qualify. And then I realized after reading the application that I do qualify right now, and my experience matters. So there's just a lot of people who are, dealing with, similar thoughts that, hey, I wanted to do this for so long, and what am I going to do with my life now? But we're still going to prepare, for the future. And I've said this phrase before, but the world continues to spin. Trouble does not last always, and we'll continue to prepare for the best. So, and at some point, the State Department will, reopen, and at some point we will be able to apply. but as of right now, this is just kind of what's happening. So nearly a dozen diplomatic missions abroad are summing up and closing. This is just a summary of this article that the State Department considers closing some European consulates: Hamburg, Strasbourg, Florence, others under scrutiny. Also may reduce staff in some DC offices. I read that other countries are also following suit. So we're just going to continue to see what does happen. But we're going to continue to study and prepare for the Foreign Service. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen with that. And I will say this as well. This is also a perfect opportunity for, and I've shared this with the group already, but if you're not in the WhatsApp group, definitely use the link below if you're watching this on YouTube to join the group. But also, this is an opportunity to learn a new language, a new opportunity to sharpen your personal narratives, which is what we're working on today. So, crafting compelling narratives, best practices for storytelling, concise writing, with a focus on FSOT essay writing. Right now, we typically run this session for about an hour. This is probably going to be about 15 minutes, just because the conversation was very robust earlier. But I'm going to make sure that I'm covering the important context when it comes to storytelling. So, and anyway, we're going to continue from there. So, again, with the focus of FSOT essay writing, the idea is to be able to tell a compelling story where you are, if you are the hero of your story or the focus of your or the subject of your story, you're able to compelling telling a story, even if you are not coming out on the positive end of your story, still being able to provide texture, context, and keep one's attention, and bridging the gap between the subject of the conversation or the subject of the story, entering into the scenario of the story, what challenges, if that, maybe the sense are happening, and then what was the conclusion. We're still going to be using the STARL method, which is how we're writing our personal narratives, the STARL method, and we do have that entire video, and I'll put a link for you to go and get the STARL method, so you can be able to write down and also workshop your own personal narrative. Today, this is more so, although this is working on verbal storytelling, you should and will be able to tell your story on paper using the same method. So combine this with the STARL method using the training that we've done before. We've worked on personal narratives the last 3 sessions. This is the last session we work on personal narratives. We're gonna, for this quarter, my goal, and I'm telling you this now for the first time, that because ideally we should be able to take the FSOT throughout the year. We're talking June. What are the 3 times? Like June, I know, October, and February. So typically you can take it 3 times. So my goal is to start the training over each time, so that way new people who are going to be preparing for that upcoming session, then they will be able to work on what they need to work on. I also want to make sure that I'm not continuously overlapping the same context, especially as now I'm recording these, which before most of the entire last year I was not recording these. I was just going over some of the context again, but now I'm recording them, so that's an opportunity for us to be a little bit more effective and just drive deeper into the context. So today, we're coming together as professionals from many different fields. So I'm coming from HR and operations. I know different people are in finance, different people are educators, different people are working in nonprofits, all sharing the dream of serving as U.S. diplomats in the Department of State. Our discussion today will show you how to use storytelling to express your unique experiences, insights, and strengths in a clear, compelling manner. I'm going to do my very best to cover, and I'm always going to just try to keep my word and only keep people here for an hour. I know we did have a really great conversation earlier, but I will still record. You're more than welcome to stay on. I will give you, I mean, obviously, you can leave at any time, but I will say, all right, as I normally do, it's 8 o'clock. Here's an hour. I want to make sure I keep my promise if you do need to go, but I will continue to actually go through the content just so I can share it with people who need it as well. So the idea is to show you the use of storytelling to express unique experiences. My goal is to cover the power of storytelling and why it matters, the key elements that make a narrative compelling, techniques for writing clearly and concisely, and how to apply these techniques to your FSOT essay responses. If anyone has taken the Foreign Service Officer test, the FSOT, that's the last thing on the entire test, and the time goes by so quickly. 3 hours just happens seemingly in maybe about an hour. That's how it felt like to me. But yeah, after answering as many questions as you possibly can, and the timer is on each of those questions, now you're faced with, all right, now I need to write a story. And this is small prompt. They're going to say blank. I did sign the NDA, so I can't say exactly what was on it. And it's going to change anyway. But yeah, you really have to kind of pull it together and write that essay. So if you can, grab your notepad and feel free to share your thoughts if you can, either in the chat or ask questions as we move along. So let's jump in. So the power of storytelling. Let's begin with the basics. What is storytelling exactly, right? Storytelling is more than just recounting events. It's about forging a connection with your audience by presenting your experiences in a relatable and memorable way. Thinking about the most memorable stories you've encountered, they typically have a clear beginning, a moment of tension or conflict, right? And a resolution that ties everything together. For those of you preparing for a career as a U.S. diplomat, your ability to tell a story isn't just about sharing your experiences. It's also about demonstrating the interpersonal and communication skills essential to diplomacy. For instance, imagine a moment when your background or your experience set you apart, a challenge you faced, or a breakthrough you achieved. Framing that experience as a story can make your FSOT essay stand out by showing you that your unique perspective and skills prepared you for a life in international service. Take a moment now, if you can, to reflect on an experience that has shaped your perspective. And we'll come back to this idea during an interactive exercise if you are game. No pressure. Some of you know I will ask sometimes, but seriously, no pressure. I'm not even going to ask names. I'm just going to open the invitation for anyone. And I do respect everyone's privacy here. So again, as you know, we are recording. So if you don't want to share, it's perfectly fine. So the key elements of a compelling narrative: the beginning, the middle, and the end. Now let's break down what makes the narrative truly compelling. Without needing any visuals, just imagine or jot down these three parts: the beginning, the middle, and the end. The beginning being the hook, the setting the scene, you're painting the picture. The middle being the conflict and the development. The ending being the resolution and the reflection. What did you learn from this? That is the L in the STARL method. Start by capturing attention immediately. This might be within a surprising fact or a vivid description or intriguing question. If anyone has ever thought about doing a TED Talk, that's pretty much how that goes. I know Toastmasters has been around for a long time and they've produced a lot of great speakers. They also may be a great way to increase your storytelling if you use it professionally for your job or you want to use it for any other aspect. So it might be a surprising fact. The aim is to set the queen and spark curiosity. To set the scene and spark curiosity quickly. The middle being the conflict and development. This is the core of his story. Here you introduce the challenge. for your subject, or turning point that gives depth to your narrative. In the context of your future role as a diplomat, this might be the moment when you have had to navigate a complex situation or overcome a significant obstacle. The ending, of course, is the resolution and reflection, the L. Conclude by resolving the conflict and sharing what you've learned. This final part is critical. It demonstrates growth, self-awareness, and the ability to reflect on your experiences, all key qualities of an FSO. So consider a hypothetical example. If you are describing a project or personal challenge that required negotiation or problem solving, begin by setting the context. Build tension as you discuss the challenge. And I do have an example to share with you, so just so it makes sense. And ultimately, you do want to explain that you resolve the issue, right? And what insights you gained. So just keep those elements in the back of your mind as you are creating that story. So before I do go into the example, some practices for writing concisely. A little personal story, and I'm trying not to make it a storytelling experience as much, but in my personal job, or in my professional job right now, my manager, I report directly to the VP of this organization, this international organization. And we are so different when it comes to communicating with stakeholders. So like CEOs, CFOs, chief people officers, and those, even CISOs, which are chief information security officers. And he's like, very punchy. And I like to use that word because it's like, he's not going to use any filler words. I love it. I actually admire it. He's not going to use any filler words. He's not going to give you any color in the conversation. He's not going to make it exciting. It's more so, hey, saw this, need that. What do you think? I mean, just to the point. And he gets the most engagement. Now, that works for him in that context because I think also because he's a VP. I'm a manager. And my business is people business. It always has been. So I do rely on painting a picture. I mean, even with the story that I just shared. So I think in this way, as it relates to the question that is being asked in the audience that you are writing to, just try to adapt. Here's some ways and some practices that you can use to adapt. So while rich detail can draw the reader in, clarity is crucial in essay writing. So here's some tips. Use active voice, eliminate filler words, and select precise language. Using active voice, the goal is to make your writing more direct, like my manager. For example, instead of saying the project was led by me, say I led the project. This shift not only clarifies your role, but also brings energy to your narrative. Eliminate filler words. Words like really, very, all the words that I like to use, really or very, can dilute your message. Focus on using words that add direct value to your story. If a word doesn't enhance your point, consider cutting it out. And I don't always speak that way, but I like to speak in a way where the general population can connect with what I'm saying. And I do continue to plan to improve the way I present as I make my way up the flagpole to be in a higher role in foreign service. So also select precise language. The choice of words matter. Instead of saying, I was very happy about the success of the project, try, I was thrilled about our success. This sharpens your message while keeping it brief. Picture before and after scenarios in your mind where a long, maybe even meaningful sentence is trimmed down to its most powerful version. This practice ensures every word counts, which is especially important in the high stakes context of FSOT essay. When I am writing an article for a magazine, which I have, I do speak differently than when I'm writing an HR handbook for an organization, or when I'm writing technical writing or creative writing. I try to think about my audience as I'm writing, and what's going to matter to them as they are perceiving it. So, all right, applying the storytelling in FSOT essay writing. Let's now apply these narrative techniques to the essay, where you came from government, private industry, or another field. Your diverse background is a strength. Your story can highlight the skills that make you a strong candidate for a diplomatic career. Consider these strategies. Start with a hook. Structure your essay like a story. Keep it concise. Open your essay with engaging anecdote. Now, I'm going to stop there by saying that more so for verbal presentations, but even with essay writing, you can do that, starting with something that's going to grab the attention. When it comes to personal narrative writing, you're essentially looking at 4 sentences. It's a paragraph, right? It's a paragraph, and it can be a very lengthy paragraph with maybe 7 sentences and several characters, but you just want to remember to stay under 1,300 characters per response on the prompt per personal narrative. But with your essay, you can have a little bit more leeway in how you are painting this picture in the story. So you do want to capture attention. You do want to set the scene. You want to organize your essay in a clear beginning, middle, and end. If you are if the prompt is analytical, a narrative structure that can help organize your thoughts and showcase your problem-solving skills, describe the situation and explain the challenge you face, and conclude with the outcome of a reflection. Keeping it concise, remember our discussion on clarity. Focus on details that truly matter. Focus on your most powerful message, right? And of course, eliminate those extra words. So here's an exercise, should you choose. And before we do continue, the time is 7:59. If you do have to go, I respect it. I'm going to continue recording, and we'll probably be done in about 10 to 15 minutes. Should there be less interaction. So thank you those that did show live. I do appreciate it. I'm going to continue, and you will, if you have to go, you'll get the link in the WhatsApp group from the recording tonight. All right, so here's one person left, another person coming in. So here is an interactive exercise. So I'd like each of you to take a moment and think about a personal challenge. Hey, Liz, we are traditionally ending at 8, but because we had a very lengthy and interesting conversation earlier about what's happening in the news, I did start recording a little late as far as the content. So we're going to go for another 15 minutes, and we're just going over telling a compelling story through your personal narratives and essay writing. So you're more than welcome to stay and contribute or listen or observe, for sure. So thank you for joining. All right, so describe a personal challenge that forced you to adapt or change, and reflect on what you learned from that experience. This could easily be a personal narrative if it had just a little bit more context as it relates to the 11 dimensions, right? But it's simply just a simple thought exercise of what personal challenge, and this is also similar if you use the workbook from the personal narrative. I thought the clock changed. I missed it. It's okay. It's all right. You still join on time because we're still here. But yeah, if you have the link to the personal narrative workbook, there's a worksheet on how to essentially get the ideas that you need. So get the projects, get the challenges. If you need that brainstorming sheet, it is there. And you can easily use one of those for this. Describe a personal challenge that forced you to adapt or change and reflect on what you learned from that experience. So take a moment to jot down a brief outline covering the beginning, the middle, and the end. Setting the scene for your hook, detailing the challenge or conflict, and explaining the resolution and insight gained. Again, the L of the STARL method. All right, so here's an example. And I did, I'm probably a resource junkie. This is probably not nice to say because I have respect for people who are affected by drugs and getting the help that they need. So any other word that you want to use instead of junkie there. So I'm a resource hoarder, maybe. And I've gotten to the point now over time where I just don't go and collect a bunch of resources just to say I have them and never use them. I've done that, but I've gotten to the point now where I realize, well, if I've been blessed with the mindset to help others, and I also have the strength to do research and find additional resources, or even be the type of person where people share resources with me and they give me permission to share them, then why not have a bank of resources that's going to help someone and be a resource for people, which is why my career is in human resources. I truly believe that I'm in my purpose in my first career as I prepare to be a diplomat. So this scenario, this writing exercise was in one of the resources and one of the links that we have. And I'm working on, and I said this earlier offline, I'm working on a way to have all the resources in a dedicated place where everyone who wants them can have them without searching through the WhatsApp group to find them. So the example, overcoming a personal challenge. Story, here we go. When I was assigned to lead a critical project with an unusual tight deadline, my team encountered a major technical setback that threatened to derail our progress. Recognizing the urgency, I organized a roundtable discussion with all the team members. Together, we brainstormed creative solutions, reallocated resources, and ultimately developed a workaround that not only solved the issue, but also improved our workflow. This experience taught me the value of collaborative problem solving and proactive leadership. So breaking down the teaching, right? The beginning, the hook. When I was assigned to lead a critical project with an unusually tight deadline. So now the challenge has been identified with an unusually tight deadline. The purpose introduces the context, establish the high stakes. In fact, I'm going to share this just so it's not just me speaking the entire time. I'm going to put this on the screen and also try to make it as large as possible because this screen is pretty large and it's not easy to see when it's like that. Zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. Yeah, maybe that'll help. Okay, let's try it now. Share screen. I might be revealing my age because I'm narrating everything I do. I used to remember people doing that when I was younger. Anyway, there we go. Okay, it looks pretty big. Okay. I'll just go. Where are we? Example. Okay. So here's an example that I was just reading. When I was assigned to lead a critical project, I already read it. And now we're going to break down. Let me see if I can just do this a bit so you can see kind of all of that. The purpose introduces context, establishes the right stakes, and immediately grabs the listener's attention. The middle conflict. So the middle, which is the conflict and development. My team encountered a major technical setback and was threatened. Let me start over. I'm sorry. My team encountered a major technical setback that threatened to derail our progress. Recognizing the urgency, I organized a roundtable discussion. The purpose: presents the challenge, technical setback, and illustrates the conflict that required immediate action. Teaching point: emphasize how active leadership and teamwork can transform a crisis into an opportunity. I feel like I probably use this at work too, because unfortunately there's a lot of things happening on the world stage right now. And there is opportunity for my employer to offer a solution. But of course, we want to do things ethically. The end resolution: together, we brainstormed creative solutions, developed a workaround. This experience taught me the value of collaborative problem solving and proactive leadership. Without, and I also feel like this, although this example is a clear and concise storytelling example, I feel like there's ways that we can go deeper into it. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go off script and give a story where there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I'm just going to think about this. So this is going to be a really rough draft, but I'm going to do my best in doing it because I really do try to use these methods every day in my normal job. Okay, I just came up with a scenario. So those who do attend with me regularly, you know your story to be true. At least the beginning of it I'm going to tell you, and then the rest of it I'm going to develop. So, as you know, I am working very hard over the last year and a half to not only curate content, but learn the context to be able to teach. I'm sorry, and now I'm thinking about the lesson that I gave. So this is really raw, right? I didn't give a hook because I'm thinking about it in a writing way versus me verbally telling you. But I'm gonna start it one more time. Okay, here we go. The goal is to be the #1 resource for foreign service training for the United States and the world. Over 10 years ago, I initially decided that I wanted to be a foreign service officer, that I wanted to be a U.S. diplomat. Since then, I have seen different ways diplomacy has worked in the workplace, worked in healthcare, worked in real world scenarios, but also on the world stage as I make diplomacy personal. Especially here in 2025, there are things that I'm learning and experiencing in the news from our White House that reminds me that diplomacy is critical and necessary. As I'm learning what it means to be a U.S. diplomat and a foreign service officer, I'm also learning that the context of what it takes to be an effective U.S. diplomat does start with the Foreign Service Officer test. Learning that history often comes back around, lessons from the past also can become a strategy for the future. Within the next several years, I plan to take the experiences that I've learned from my fellow students, share my own experiences, and go forth and learn additional context that will help sharpen and build up the next generation of Foreign Service officers for the United States of America. Now, I did not write that down, and I hope it wasn't too long, but I'm going to stop presenting. Actually, I'm using Gemini, I believe, the AI to record the meeting. So that means that it probably also, it probably didn't get word for word my storytelling, but it will. I did 3 minutes ago. Oh, it didn't get it. So it's probably going to be one of those things where it's going to have to recap. But from my memory, the beginning hook was setting the scene that I desire to be the number one source for Foreign Service officer training. To become a Foreign Service officer, that's the scene that I'm setting, and the hook. The conflict is that I didn't have the confidence, much like a lot of people who don't know what a diplomat is, that to even go and apply. And there's a lot of different hurdles that are in the way right now in the media that would prevent and are preventing people from becoming U.S. diplomats and learning about a great career for the first time. The resolution: I'm going to continue to study. I'm going to continue to learn and build with my fellow future diplomats and I'm going to say classmates here, and continue to present here in the next few years the best possible training that can help the next generation. And that's really just me summarizing my own story. But let me know in the comments if you can, because I know y'all are gonna be honest with me. I know it was very rough. But just let me know in the comments, what you thought about my storytelling, my real life at that very moment storytelling, and if it really made sense. All right, so while you're doing that, and we're gonna wrap here in a moment. Gemini did actually give me a replay of what not a replay, but a summarizing of what I just said. It says Travis Patterson shared his goal of becoming the number one resource for U.S. Foreign Service training, explaining his journey from aspiring diplomat to educator, incorporating real world and historical context. Patterson detailed the challenges faced by aspiring diplomats, highlighting the lack of awareness and confidence, and outlined his plan to continue learning and developing training to support future generations of U.S. Foreign Service officers. This involved using his experience and lessons learned along with those of fellow students to create impactful training materials. And that's Gemini. So, but yeah, let me know in the chat. I don't think I saw anything coming in. But if that made sense, if I did follow it, so judge me. I want you to be my assignment of the America's Next. What is it called? America's Got Talent. I forgot the name of the show, but I want you to be my judge here and let me know if my storytelling actually made sense. If there was a beginning, a middle, and an end, and a resolution of conflict. So, but other than that, that's a wrap for today's session.